What the f is freedom? Freedom is a very porous and obsessed over concept within politics, but Isaiah Berlin wanted to focus on two specific aspects of freedom, which covered a lot of the ground of what people were speaking about when they talk about freedom. The first kind of freedom is negative freedom, which is when we are uninterfered with by another person or persons. And whenever we're talking about interference, we can think about something like coercion, which is when we are deliberately interfered with by someone else, obviously to a certain minimum at the very least. This has also been known as freedom from, like freedom from violence, freedom from tyrants. It's a relatively modern, individualistic form of freedom, which a lot of liberals like Mills have often supported, as they felt that a sphere of non-interference was the best place to develop as an individual. The second kind of freedom is positive freedom, which is the extent to which we're capable of acting as a self-conscious master of our own actions. This comes with the idea that there is some kind of higher self which we have not yet attained. This higher self expands our capabilities, which expands our total freedom as a whole. A good example of this would be our communal selves, like you as an American or you as a member of a specific community. Negative freedom is often individually focused. Positive freedom is often group focused. Negative freedom is more simply about not being restricted, while positive freedom is slightly more complex and is about actively expanding what we are free to do. However, Berlin's conception of freedom does go a little bit deeper. To identify freedom as a concept, we needed to have a minimum of negative freedom. Additionally, for society, we should have a set of freedoms which are considered sacred or untouchable due to their ingrained necessity to our human experience, which might be encroached upon by the short-term whims of a government. Nowadays, we would call those human rights or any kind of inherent right that we view people as having. However, total negative freedom is not necessarily the answer to our problems. We need to maintain our values, like, for example, not killing people. So we do have to restrict some of our freedoms, like the freedom to murder, if we want to maintain those values. Positive freedom also has a slightly more complex side, where if we think about obstacles that are placed on our paths that would usually be considered as interference for negative freedom, in the case of positive freedom, at times those obstacles can become the way in which we actually progress towards more freedom. Think of a teacher forcing their student to overcome a maths problem. The knowledge gained by overcoming the obstacle opens up more freedom to them and their expanding capabilities. However, with this conception of positive freedom, we can get to a place where we assume that there is a singular rational human goal, which we must all reach. Think of the teacher going one step farther and punishing their student for not learning their specific way. It's this which leads to a dogmatic certainty in a utopia and provides the permission to temporarily limit someone else's freedoms in the quest for the great freedom. But for Berlin, the reality is the goals of everyone are diverse and incompatible sometimes with each other. So the idea that there can be a singular formula for everyone's goals is just unachievable. And just to leave it a final point, which might be somewhat relatable to right now, Berlin also points out that there is a freedom as resistance to our unreasonable desires. This is a reference to Kant's idea that we as rational beings need to gain power over our irrational desires, but is also focused on freedom from the external coercion by disconnecting from the influences of the outside world, basically closing yourself off. Freedom from all the noise that goes on outside, effectively. Berlin believes this kind of closing off of yourself is inadequate as freedom because it doesn't actually leave you any materially more free before or after your abstinence from the outside world. A slave is no more free of their chains by becoming numb to them, effectively.